to ALC. Welcome to Sensational Sundays.
ALC Global.
Is because no one else can do what she does. Oh, somebody ought to clap on that one. You never look for success by trying to do something better than someone else, or trying to be like Michael Jackson or like Jordan or like this. What you do with your children when you're trying to help them succeed is to help them to understand. Stop looking to what has already been done to improve upon it. What is it that you can do that no one else can? What sound can you make that no one else can? What move can you make that no one else can? It took me a while for me to even understand myself. There are things I do that no one else can do or think the way I think. And that's what the problem has been. A lot of times you will discern and discover that it's not that you don't have the gift or the talent. It's that just the world has not seen you. You may live your life. You may die and go home to be in glory. And that's another thing that has changed with these physics recently. They're saying there may be as many as 11 to 12 different universes. Oh, they don't know what to do. Where we exist in all of these different, well, comic books already told you that. So, I mean, I knew that when I was a kid. You know, reading Superman and all, and a Legion of, and Justice League and everything. I knew all that they had. Well, of course, it wasn't considered to be true. But now they're saying the possibility is there that we live on various levels, that when we leave this realm, our cells continue to generate and become part of the earth. And the earth goes right back to the stars. And those stars go back into black holes, and those black holes regenerate everything and produce something in another realm. And what happens to the soul? The soul goes back to God. The earth goes back to the body goes back to the earth. We don't need the body anymore, but the soul moves on into the consciousness of God. And when God is ready to release it again, it can come back wherever God says it needs to come back and to do what it needs to do. Whatever God wants. For if this earthly tabernacle shall be destroyed, we have a building not made by hands, eternal in the heavens. Anyway, we understand the ability to see, and things happen if we can see it. If we can see it in our minds. So what do we do now with a world that is changing, a government that is changing, politics that is telling us you don't know what you're talking about? We want to change our world and make this a Christian nation. And it sounds so nice and sweet, especially if you're a Christian. And like people used to say, we're all Christians. If we're Christians, we're all the same kind of Christians. And we all worship and serve the same God. And I would nod. And I would say, yes, we serve the same God. And we're all Christians. Until I got older. And I began to question, what kind of Christian are you talking about? And so now we're into this phrase of Christian nationalism, which is where they want to take the world. Now, you must understand that these are politicians, not as much politicians, but think tanks. Politicians, there are those who know how to politic and how to police, because the root word of politician is polis, where we get the word police, comes out of the Greek. And in order to be a politician, during the ancient Greeks, when it was forming in the Greek senates and the Roman senates, what was happening when that concept of politician and democracies were forming, you had to have money. Because you went to a place and you sat in the Senate or in seats and you talked about things and debated. If you don't have money, you don't have, well, what is money? Money is energy, ability, time, creativity. If you don't have money, you don't have time. So your time is eaten up with earning money so you can live, not think. See, this is why we're here together. The reason we're here together is we have to take the time to understand that even in our daily lives of earning money to live, we cannot let them take from us the ability to think. Because if we cannot think, we cannot police or politic. And so you leave the thinking up to people who have no brains. I didn't say, and who deal with ignorance. Now, you must understand that politics is not about truth. It has always amazed me how one station can show a clip of a politician saying, I'm not for that, because God said. And 30 days later, they over on another station saying, well, I'm for that. Then they'll go back and do what they call flip-flop. And so all of the stations turn around and says, well, yeah, they flip-flopped on it, but they're for it now. Or they'll say the previous orange person, we have apples, green apples and yellow banana. We have so many things. And the oranges says, this is what I do, and this is true. But then they flip. And then the media says it's all right to flip because they're moving now to the general election, and most politicians will flip during this time so that they can reach the mainstream. What kind of people look at someone, it's called a lie, and look at somebody who lies and then says, well, they're not lying anymore. My grandmama used to say, a liar will not be believed even when they speak the truth. Not in America. You can lie in America and they'll say, well, they're not lying anymore. They really believe that. And so I think I'm going to help them and I'm going to vote for them. I'm going to vote for them. And so they've been talking. So now we understand something. So now they're saying we need a country that shouldn't be able to see color. Say the word see. See. We've been saying it throughout this entire discourse. To see color so that we become color blind. Imagine if you became color blind. Imagine if all of a sudden they injected your DNA or trained you and taught you not to see the color red. What would happen to you? And the reason they would say is because the devil wears red. The devil wears a red suit, red pitchfork, red horns. So therefore, we're going to erase the color red. We're going to be colorblind to the color red so that we don't see the devil. So people just go to school and they learn not to see the color red. That's what the telescope started doing. And they start talking about they don't see red. We're colorblind. We don't see red. When we look at something red, it's not red. We're colorblind to red. Then if it's not red, what color is colorblind? Well, we got a problem here because I'm driving down the street. And I'm driving down the street, and while I'm driving down the street, I just keep driving because I see this white sign with the word STOP on it. And I keep driving, so why should I stop? It don't say red, it's not red, because now I got that shot in me that means I'm colorblind. And so I get hit by another car. Didn't damage me, but I got hit. So I keep on driving. So while I'm driving, I'm just going along listening to my music, and then all of a sudden I look up and I see a green light that says go, then a yellow light, but then I keep going because the next light I see is clear. It's white. And I slam into somebody else's car because you see, I no longer see red. But what really bothered me is that I went into the store and I was real thirsty and I got a pack of Kool-Aid. And I went home and mixed it up. And I'm getting ready to drink me with some ice and some red Kool-Aid. And sure enough, it's just white. Because I can no longer see the color red. It tastes like it should be red, but it's not red because I can no longer. You see, I'm colorblind. And people teaching our children it should be a colorblind society. And so I'm driving down the street in a red. I had to rent a car this week because my fuel injector, something happened to my fuel injector. So I had to take my fuel injector to the shop. And so I got this, you know, them warranties that you see here on the radio and stuff, and I got one of them. But you got to fight with them folks. I didn't have to fight too hard with them, but you still got to fight with them. And so I had to keep that little red card kind of longer than I wanted to, and I didn't particularly care for it. I mean, it was a nice little red Cadillac, but it ain't my truck. So it's a difference. So I'm sitting in that thing, and it's red, and so finally I said, okay, I'm tired of this. I'm tired of this red car. Everything's been red. I guess that's why I'm talking about it now, because it's gotten on my nerves. And I just lost my thought about what I was getting ready to say. Oh, I rebuke that spirit of Joe Biden. Get out of my head. Anyway. But my point is, if we are taught to change how we see things, then we also can be taught to say colorblind to other people. So if you're colorblind, then what becomes the standard color? Do people who are clear or white have to be colorblind? Are they say we don't see color, so we don't see red, so therefore they don't see black, they don't see anything. You say, well, why do you keep talking about black? The only reason I have to talk about it is because the Constitution talks about it. We didn't create black. The Constitution said if you got a drop of this blood in you, you black. 1/8. One drop. Even if they can't, Plessy versus Ferguson, even if they can't tell you what color, you are black. So they created blackness in contrast to whiteness. So if you colorblind, when black people say, well, I'm colorblind, what do they see? Then if there's a person with no color and they're blind to it, then they don't see anybody. You see how silly this becomes. So here I'm got to deal with my Kool-Aid. Here I got to deal with stop signs. Here I got to deal with all this because people want a colorblind because they want to see. Now we got a problem in society. Now we got a problem with politicians. Now we're dealing with politicians, people who can't think, people who don't read, people who are dealing with ignorance because they're not searchers of truth. Not all, and understand they're people, but they can't use it in politics. They got to use other things in politics. They can't use their preaching voices in politics. When they use them, they shut them down. They can't use these things like that. These people shift the levers of power. It's about power, who's in control, not about who can think the most. You'll go broke in Washington trying to think. Politicians are there to try to make as much money as they can while they're in office, and then maybe do a little good for their community. If you understand this, then you realize why you vote. Why do you vote? Because 2 out of every 10 Americans has no concept that D comes after C. A, B, C, D. I know some of you had to think about that. But they did a survey. A, B, C. What comes after that? Oh, E, F. America. In other words, you're looking at something like about 20% of America cannot make that kind of decision. When you hear them, you hear things like this. Well, I'm still trying to think about who I'm going to vote for. Why? Someone says, I don't like you. And the other one says, I may not like you either, but I like you enough that we can help each other. Who are you going to vote for? One, well, you know, I have a right to my opinion. No, you don't. Not in the face of fact. See, opinion is wonderful as long as you keep it in your opine. The moment you release an opinion, it is subjected to fact. And once the fact says, that don't make no sense, then you got to be quiet and go back and study. But no, I have a right to my... See, America is a little child in some cases. And they stomp their feet and they say, I have a right to drag this country back into the twilight zone. And then you have people with money who says, well, there's nothing wrong with that. I'm voting for my wallet. It's not that. I'm voting for someone who's going to make sure that my taxes are lowered. What about your children? What about your grandchildren? What about your great-grandchildren? If you don't like yours, what about other people's? What about somebody else's child? What about some child that's drinking dirty water? What about some child do you trust your children's water intake to people in Washington? Don't you want to know who them folk are? Or are you so busy? Well, you can't get the vote. Why? Because they're taking up your time. You working 2 and 3 jobs and you don't want to get in. So when you get home and get on the couch, you stay there. And you saying, I don't have time to vote. You got time to vote. You just don't want to get up. And I understand that. I understand how you feel. But there are some things that you have to make yourself do. Not just, you got to make yourself do something. For we walk by faith and not by sight. So you're saying, Dr. Ed, you have painted a horrible picture of the world. And then you talk about we build the people who shape the world. How do we create a better world? It'll take us forever to create. So forget voting for this person or that person or that person. It ain't gonna make no difference. Only a child reasons like that, or a fool. When I was a child, I thought as a child. I spoke as a child. I understood as a child. But when I became full grown, I put away childish things. If I got to get up and go vote, and I'm going to be in this line longer than the other folk in the suburbs, because they're going to leave me in here because they took in the polling places and shut some of them down. Oh, what difference does it make? Because now there is something I got to do. Well, Dr. Ed, what do you do? Ed Montgomery, what do you do? Eddie, Edward, Lalo, all of it. What do you do? You have to create. Repeat after me. Create your own world. Okay. You can't fix this thing we're in, this planet. I ain't talking about that world. Create your own world. How do you create your own world? What do you like to eat for breakfast? Decide that's what you want to eat, and then eat it. When you go to work, decide what you're going to have for lunch. When you're in work, decide who's going to go to your happy hour with you, and if you don't want them to go, tell them don't go. Tell Uncle James he can't come to Thanksgiving dinner because he keeps jewelry be missing. Or the children be saying, Uncle James, he just kept trying to put us in the closet. And then Uncle James can't come back to Thanksgiving until Uncle James go to counseling, and then we all in the family sit out and talk to Uncle James. But that's our blood. That's not blood. That's flesh. I don't want that in my world. Who do I want? Who do I want to become my friend? Who do I want to become my soulmate? Who do I want to become my lover? Who do I want to be these things? You pick the people you want. And every decision you make creates an aspect of your world. Oh, so is this a perfect world? No, it's not a perfect world. You got a bunch of stuff in there that you got to work on now. But then how do you work? Why put all these things together and you got in your world? Because you see, your world is your perspective. How you want to spend your brunch, how you want to spend your evenings, who you want to call you after a certain time at night, who you want to call you, period. They have block. Say these word letters with me. B-L-O-C-K. E-M. Not Ed Montgomery, it's called block 'em. That's what you do. You block them. If you don't want to talk to them, you block them. You may love them, but love and block them go together. I don't agree with that. Well, you told your children, I whipped you because I loved you. That's what you tell your other folk, I blocked you because I love you. Then you don't have to hear from them anymore. You don't have to hear them. And then when you're ready to hear from them, call them yourself from a burner phone. Now that you understand this, you realize that there's mess in my world. There's conflict in this world I'm creating. What do I do? You're not telling me how to create a perfect world. No. I'm teaching you how to create the world you want to live in. So what do I do? And Jesus cursed the fig tree out of Mark chapter 11. And when Jesus cursed it, when Jesus spoke to that fig tree and said, from henceforth, no fig shall grow on you because you deceived me by making me think you were more than what you are. So there I'm speaking to you, fig tree. No more figs on you. They came back later on and looked at that tree and they discovered it was not that Jesus just said no more figs grow on you. The scripture says out of Mark chapter 11, it says, and the fig tree had dried up from the roots. Jesus didn't tell the fig tree dry up from the roots. He said no more figs on you. Well, you discover that good figs come from a good tree, and a good tree comes from good roots. When the roots are bad, you block them. Because when you got bad roots, they're going to lie about the fruit that comes on your tree. So now you understand, well, how do I create a world out of things that seem so, my world is so topsy-turvy. My job is topsy-turvy. My love life is topsy-turvy. My finances is topsy-turvy. How do I change this? And Jesus says it in Mark chapter 11, verse 23. He says, have faith in God. For verily I say unto you, whosoever shall say to these little mountains, be thou removed and be cast into the sea, and shall believe in his heart that whatsoever he says shall come to pass, he shall have, or they shall have whatsoever you say. It does not say that God will move anything, because you see, what you're creating is not God's world. What you're creating is your world. You got to learn how. Number one, say, talk to it. I'm gone. We'll pick that up later. I sat back the other day and I decided, I'm not taking the world as is, I'll just create my own. I thought about the people that's in our congregation, and I said, you know what? I was looking through some names, and I was looking through y'all's names and things of that sort. And I said, you know what? I like the people that are here. I love y'all. I like these people. Not just love you. We all love Jesus. Everybody love people in the name of Jesus. But there's some folk you don't like. But I like my congregation. I really like this congregation. I've liked all the congregations that we've had. This particular one I like. I like this one. And you know why I like it? I think I like it because we may be a little bit older, but we have gone through so much that we seemingly have come to a place that we have finally said, you know what? God is in control. And I said, I looked around at that funeral of the congresswoman. I saw so many of our people that I've known over the years that came up to talk to me, because I don't go out that much. And I was glad to see them. Well, you know, as much as I was going to see of them. But I was glad to see them. I was glad to talk with them. Seeing is talking to me, of course. It's a lot of different things to me. Memorization. Most people don't realize when I say I see you sometimes as my memory of you 12 years ago. Be glad. When I get it, I look in the mirror.
Let me break in here for a second. I want to tell you a little secret. There is something I used to do it was commodity trading. And they used to have something on the list called winter wheat. I never knew what it was, never paid any attention to it, because in my northern background, all I saw in the winter was hard ground, snow. How could anything grow? Well, I learned different. I learned that winter wheat was something that was planted around the fall, around September, October. And when it was planted, they didn't just throw the seed out there on the ground. Of course, it would be too hard. But they drilled down into the earth and almost like planted them one by one. Now, when the snow came and the winter came, it would go dormant. But when the spring came, it would come up again. And they would harvest it around that time. Winter wheat. In other words, there are things in our lives that we plant in times when people think they won't grow. There's a number 9 that I believe symbolizes finality. It symbolizes harvest. It symbolizes the end of something like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then 10, you start all over again. This is 2024. 2, 2, 4 equals 8, new beginnings. But watch this. You can plant during the new beginnings, but you can't eat the harvest until later. When you plant something, it takes time. Sometimes it's dormant. Sometimes there's a winter. Sometimes you feel like everything is shut down, just like the earth is shut down in the winter. But you know what? Spring is coming. A different kind of growth is about to take place. So what you thought was not going to happen is going to happen. It's a seed that you plant in the earth. The seed and the need. The need is in the seed, and the seed is in the need. So whatever it is that you need, and whatever needs you see around you, plant it. It might be $9.90. It might be, for those of you who have it, and people have it, it might be $90.90, or it might be $99.90, whatever. Put a 9 in that offering. It might just be $9. Whatever it is, take the time. Plant it now. You can call the number. You can text to give. People love it. 713-742-2035. That's 713-742-2035. Or you can go to myalc.org. I love myalc.org. It's safe. It's secure. And you can hit that donate button, smash it, crash it, hit it. Let it be known that you're there. And you will see how to do it. Look, there are a lot of needs around in this world. There's going to be a lot of issues coming up. It's going to look like everything is lying dormant. But remember, if you put your seed in the ground, it's already coming up while you're not thinking about it. In the wintertime, it's not the heat from the sun outside that will grow this seed. Guess what? It's going to be the warmth of the sun inside that will make this seed come to life. It's going to be a warmth, like warm oil inside of you. Give, you'll feel it, and it will make a difference not only in the lives of others, but also in your life. All right? We love you.